Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story, we welcome back the author of the incredible storyline, The Mountain, and Mr. David Morningway. And as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled The Hunt. Let's get straight into that. The mist rolled through the fields of fading green like silent waves of a forgotten ocean, giving the autumn pathways of the local park an even more eerie setting within the dawn's early hours. In the Smoky Mountains, if one got up early enough on the right morning, it was almost like getting to jog through Silent Hill, like stepping foot into another world, before the sun would rise and chase the fog away, like a shepherd scaring off the wolves so the herd could walk along safely. None of the other sheep saw me follow her, obscured by the forest and mist. I followed the woman's scent from the wood line of her apartment complex, which is only about a mile away, all the way to the park's entrance, which borders a local college. And this convenient setup had delivered me several victims so far, most which are naive young college students, just like little Jennifer here, who is now about a half a mile into her morning jog before class. I've been watching her for almost a fortnight now and must wait until she hits the 1 mile mark before I move on her. For at 1 mile, she reaches her peak performance level, and she will need every ounce of her strength if she is to survive my presence, and she must have somewhat of a chance if the hunt is to be enjoyed. If there is not a chance for her to escape, then it is not a hunt, but simply killing. And that is not enough, not for such a graceful and beautiful prey. She is only about 500 yards away now, cutting through the mist like a sentient blade, with a perfect form and relentless speed, and I begin to slowly unfurl myself from the image of a man, breaking and reforming my bones and tendons that the facade of humanity melts away with the pink flesh around my rapidly expanding skeleton. Although she has earbuds in playing loud pop music, I try to slow my transformation so the sound of snapping marrow and ripping muscle won't alert her to my close proximity, which she inches closer to every second. And as my metamorphosis becomes complete, so does the gap between us as she reaches a parallel position to me. Within the forest, I see the very first telltale sign of her brain recognizing something, or it is wrong, recognizing me as her nostrils begin sniffing the air, no doubt smelling my sweet and lovely sulphuric rot. I know she has smelled me prior to this morning, but probably justified it within her mind as a decay of natural forest animals. However, I am about as unnatural as a creature can be in this world, at least on this side of the veil. I know she has felt my presence too, for each time she runs, the number of times she looks back and around becomes more and more prevalent. Her head has been on a swivel the entire mile to me, frantically scanning for the threat that she is running directly to. You should have stayed back in the barn with the rest of the lambs, little girl. But you are not a sheep at all, are you? No, you are something a bit more, something courageous, something restless and fast, something delicious. The sheep will freeze in place, or lay down for the slaughter with pleading cries, but you will be different. You will run away and practice skill, fueled by desperate adrenaline. I can no longer hold back, no longer need to as I take my first heavy step towards you from out of the woods, the fog thick with your sweat and fear, your scent parting up my nostrils as the mist parts around my advancing figure, as I move slowly towards you with strained patience. And before you take in my full horrific visage through the fog, you fulfill my greatest desire and run, like you have never run before. Thank you, Jennifer. I promise not to make you wait long. As she sprints off at a speed superior to most of her kind, I jump onto the gravel path and begin my pursuit, forcing myself to go slow before I can no longer take the manic excitement and begin charging after her. She tries cutting through the field to make a shortcut towards the parking lot, but I knew she would, for I have planned this extensively. I began turning through the field even before her. By the time she realized her mistake, I was already too late. And as she glanced back, I was already reaching the pinnacle of my jump and pounced upon her before she could even consider a course correction. And as my jaw unhinges for the first exquisite taste, I thank her for her return to a fiery "fuck you" at me before I begin. Ah, fighter, down to her very last moments. And fighters always taste the best. The dreamer woke me up at precisely 3:33 a.m, as they always do, making me spring up out of bed so instantly that it almost felt violent, as my breath panted strong and was still lingering adrenaline and sweat pours heavy with slowly fading excitement and fear. And as the implications of the dream ease into my consciousness, so does a smile gently warming its way up my face like a welcome sunrise. I have been growing quite bored, waiting for my next vision of the hunt, waiting for my next wayward victim to track down. And as I rise out of bed to relieve my bladder, I stop and stare at the silver crucifix that was gifted to me years prior, and gently rubbing my thumb and index finger around the circular band that surrounds the crucifix, right where the two crosses intersect. And for several minutes I become lost in this act, circling my thumb around the silver band, as the warm, subtle vibrations of the powerfully blessed precious metal calm the storm within my mind. The concealed energy within it creates electric goosebumps that shoot up my arm and ascend through my spine like a charged battery, flowing through a circuit board. I stop and wonder just how many times this special amulet has hidden my true presence from my prey, and I let out a small bound of laughter at all the previous memories of the hunt. I release the silver amulet as it gently slaps against the tall mirror it's hung on, making me take notice of myself. The dark blue sky that usually fills up my irises is glowing a fierce yellow, but that always happens when I have the premonition, the dream drawing out the power within me, regardless of my level of control over it. I breathe in and out deeply as the vibrant yellow dulls and then transitions back to the iris blue. How excited I am to find you, Jennifer. How truly happy I am to once again be the hunter. Don't worry, I promise not to make you wait long. I sighed deeply as the alarm snooze function on my cell phone issued out loudly for the third time. My parents never allow me to sleep past the third sounding of the alarm's 5-minute snooze delay. And it was a habit that I kept through all 3 years of college so far. Fuck, I say in a half-mumbled tone as the hazy fog of sleep refused to dissipate from my now waking but still clouded mind. And although I had been doing fairly well at switching out my morning caffeine for a ginger and turmeric tonic, I have a full-class schedule and need to get some cardio in after I do some pull-ups and push-ups, and so I'm definitely going to have to approve some fresh brewed coffee, and quite immediately. A lot of my classmates have prescribed Adderall, or even use meth to enhance their motivation for such obstacles. I would be lying if I said I never tried to do the same before. Unfortunately. About 3/4 of the way through my freshman year, I became overwhelmed, overworked, hyper-anxious, depressed, and spiritually lost, and pretty much any other negative side effect this world can throw at us at the hardest of times. And this unwanted blending of hopeless emotions led me to make some less than logical or safe life decisions. Unfortunately, things like speed and alcohol, most other drugs, they end up having an adverse or unpleasant effect on me, with the actual enjoyment of the substance being outweighed by the horrid after effects with the gravity of the planet. The ratio of enjoyment compared to the then feeling like rotten death after partaking, I was never even close to being balanced, with the latter always being far superior for me, and thus it not being fun or worth it at all. Although I didn't want to be able to enjoy doing such obviously self-destructive acts, it was still annoying seeing how others could sometimes functionally use this for their benefit, while I had to fight tooth and nail with every ounce of my energy and willpower to even try to succeed. This is a blessing, Jen, I reminded myself, The thought of how these substances had turned my cousin Charlotte into the walking dead, of how she was a track star and piano prodigy, and how she now sells her body and robs storage units for drugs. Although the memory of my cousin's de-evolution in life saddens me deeply, the perspective shift of my own situation hardens my resolve and wills me to grab my running shoes as the coffee maker hisses and sputters its usual symphony, signalling that the last remnants of my morning brew are now ready for consumption. After a few sips of coffee, I chug some branched-chain amino acids and start my pre-run push-ups and pull-ups before I start thinking about my life too long, and therefore lose the motivation. After about half an hour, I complete my strength training and head out on the front door to the park. The only inner debates I have left at this point is music, motivational speech, or horror stories to fuel my run with. I decide on the story after noticing that my favourite YouTube narrator uploaded a new 45-minute story with an interesting title. Something about the Olympic Mountains, and since I wanted to move to Port Angeles ever since I watched Twilight as a little girl, I select part 1 and begin my morning run with a bit more enthusiasm now. It takes about half a mile of steady jogging before my anxiety begins transitioning into endorphins and a full mile in until my prime stride, making my arms and legs pump back and forth methodically like mechanical pistons, as I become a more driven machine than tenacious woman at this point. I lose myself in a horror story as the narrator's deep voice lulls me along. The thick morning mist ascends the suspenseful tale like ketchup on a hot crisp French fry. Oh God, I say out loud, laughing to myself. I must really be getting hungry if even my inner monologues are dominated by food metaphors now. I quickly look behind me, doing a 360, turn and spin so as to not fully break my stride while glancing back. This is not the first time that I've done this today. Why did I even actually do that? I try asking myself honestly. Genuinely, I have to think about it before I'm completely honest with myself. I was scared. Why though? I asked myself. Nobody was there that time or the other 2 times either. I have listened to the creepypastas and other scary stories while doing night runs, and so this little morning jog, it should be nothing. You know that feeling you sometimes get in the middle of the night? That feeling like you're being watched in the darkness by something? Then the feeling gets so unignorable that it forces you to get up and turn the lights on, but not too quickly though, because you don't want to let it know that you know it's there, whatever it is. That feeling had been growing inside me like a virus ever since I left the apartment, and save for the coverage of the rolling fog, all the lights in the world were expanding within the early morning sun, and so there was nothing left to turn on, no switch that could be flipped to make the feeling go away or fear subside. I tried using logic to shake off the creeping dread that was ascending inside me, tried telling myself that half a cup of coffee that I drank was playing on my already frayed and anxious nerves, and just as I thought this process was beginning to work, until my dread swiftly and unforgivingly evolved into pure panic, as I began to smell rotten eggs and dead animals. It was like the smell was making my brain jump into fight or flight mode, which makes no sense at all, because I've grown up in the mountains, around bears, dead forest life, and even a mountain lion. Luckily for my brain, I'm literally already jogging, so I just follow my instincts and run the rest of the trail as I had planned anyway. However, instead of jogging back to my apartment the way I came, I just take the roundabout way through town after getting a Gatorade. Once my frayed nerves calm a bit and my rehydration is complete, I jog on the road back to my apartment for the last mile. I think tomorrow I'm going to take my bear mace. It's kind of big and clunky, but if it would stop a grizzly, then it should handle anything out there. There I go, giving my fear away to nothing but the ether again. Nothing but imagination and vibration upon living biology. Well, I want to study it, that is. And after all my basic credits are out the way, I can transfer to a more prestigious university with a better science department. And see, as I turn the horror off after needlessly panicking, I suppose I'll finish it now, on the way back to my apartment. I guess I'll become a bit sensitive to caffeine after taking weeks off and make the preemptive decision to switch back to ginger and turmeric tomorrow morning. I mean, it had to have just been the coffee working on bad nerves. That's all, I tell myself, unconvincingly. Okay, it wasn't the caffeine. It's been an entire 24 hours since yesterday's incident, and the exact same thing happened on my run this morning. I began listening to part 2 of the story. I began the day prior, but after having to restart it a 5th time due to my now wandering mind and paranoia, I simply gave up and opted to listen to the awakening sounds of nature instead. Well, that seemed to start working for a short time, with the early morning birds flushing off my unease with their sing-song melodies. Yeah, it was working. Right after the smell came back at a completely different location than yesterday, eliminating the possibility that I was just smelling some dead animal twice. And with the arrival of the horrid smell came the departure of every single sound of forest life. Like a switch was flipped within the very primal core of nature. Life on, life off. And it happened so fast that the length of time it actually took seemed immeasurable. I stopped jogging completely now and held my bear mace out as if something would violently erupt from the woods and give frenetic chase after me. I was terrified of the unknown, or did my instincts actually know something was out there, and were desperately trying to scream at me that I'm very much in real danger? I ran the rest of the way in a cautious slow jog, my head turning back at random places whenever my nerves deemed it necessary. I walked all the way back through town with the most recent incident overwhelming my train of thoughts. What the fuck was going on? I thought to myself, like a desperate detective without a lead. All I know for sure is that if I'm going to keep running, then I'm going to need something better than just bear mace. She's definitely the one, I say to myself as the young woman jogs by, seemingly oblivious to my presence, let alone my true nature or what profound danger she's truly in. She does a quick spinning turn whilst jogging, doing a fast check to see if anybody is behind her. She shouldn't have picked up the scent yet. Perhaps this one is a bit more in tune for picking up paranormal or supernatural presences. Perhaps this one is special and more sensitive to feeling life forms from beyond the veil, and no doubt much more. As I see her nose twitch up and down as she squints her face, her aura changes, signaling to me that fear and anxiety are now bubbling to her surface. She just now picked up the scent, confirming my suspicions. For a force deep within her genetics, her very soul alerted her to the otherworldly dangers, before she'd even smelled the repugnant decay and rot that now permeates the air. The next morning, she returned seemingly both more aware and prepared to the paved, gravel and grassy trails of the Greenway Park. She is obviously more alert now, looking around randomly and unprompted at the misty forest scenery as if she is being stalked. She stops completely this time and holds out a can of bear mace like a pistol, feverishly looking around in fearful anticipation of some attack. She is definitely sensitive. I step back a bit, letting myself take in the big picture as I rub my silver crucifix with my thumb and index finger, making myself focus entirely so things don't play out too prematurely. She takes the public path back to her apartment through town, as she did the day prior, and I follow her closely from the sanctity of the forest the entire way. Since you don't have the concealed carry permit, you have to wear the holstered weapon outside of any clothing, so it's not illegal. The pawnshop employee tells me in a thick southern accent. Although I too was raised in western North Carolina, my father trained himself not to have an accent after getting into real estate and dealing with rich out-of-state clients. And my mother is from Huntington Beach, California, and so I never really grew up with a southern twang like the vast majority of my friends. So is it legal to jog the Greenway Park with this thing flashing on my hip? I asked the employee, replying to his prior statement. Well, you most definitely get some sour or alarm looks. Maybe even a Karen or two giving you a "how dare you" speech. But you just ignore them. There aren't any signs prohibiting it. So you're 100% in your constitutional rights. And there is nothing them or the corrupt boys in blue can do about it. He says to me more enthusiastically as he turns his hip and lightly taps the absolute cannon of a revolver that he has displayed. The boyish grin leaves his face shortly after, now being replaced by a look of cautiously hidden fear, as he looks intensely into my eyes. A young girl like you should find a nice safe gym to jog in. The Greenway, well, it isn't always safe, especially for college students right now. He tells me with genuine concern in his now lowering voice. How do you know I'm a student, and what are you implying by it's dangerous? Right now, I asked with subtle panic in my voice. I saw your college ID when you paid for the weapon. Plus, I had to run a mandated background check during the 3-day waiting period for approval, he says matter-of-factly. I apologise to the man, letting him know that I've been a bit on edge and jumpy lately. Listen, he says in an almost whisper as he leans across the glass counter and looks around carefully for any eavesdroppers before he begins. Have you experienced anything weird out there? He asks. Have you noticed anyone following you or just anything at all that will be reason for concern? He concludes. Oh, yes, I say without even thinking. It's nothing. I'm probably just being paranoid. Is it like you're being followed? You smell something foul in the air at the same time? Or the forest critters go dead quiet? He asks even more hushed now. Oh, yes, I answer in a more alarmed whisper. Have you experienced it too? What the hell was up with that? And the man paused for a long moment, seeming to have some sort of inner conflict, the kind of decisional turmoil someone has when they're keeping a secret that morally tears them apart. And the man stayed like this for a short time before he finally exhaled loudly and looked into my eyes. For the past 6 months, this township has found 2 dead college kids killed by unidentified predators. Yeah, Missy Martin and James Caldwell, I say, interrupting the man with a pre-existing knowledge. They found them up by Albert's Mountain, close to the abandoned fire watchtower. I think the paper said that it was a bear attack or something. No, the man yells before quickly composing himself and once again lowering his voice. He looks out of the door to see if any customers are about to come in before he continues. Their bodies were found ripped to pieces just off the side trails of the Greenway. They moved them to the Alberts Mountain because it was a posted bear sanctuary. And the town didn't want to lose the presence of the tourists that pour into the Greenway on the daily, not to mention the park borders the brand new golf course. And so they don't want members to go elsewhere, let alone lose more business the rich folks' pristine county clubs up in the Highlands. And the man started rubbing his face in the palms of his hands while sighing, the kind of gesture someone does when they're extremely tired or stressed out, before letting go of his head and staring downwards, like he was almost ashamed of something. I was there, you see, he began. They sought out volunteers, locals to help move the evidence and not ask too many questions. The town even donated money to my shop. I guess so I would keep my mouth shut, and I intended to. Told myself that it was the right thing to do. How would we all catch the beast responsible and keep money flowing into the town with our silence, so we could all take care of our families? It's funny. Things you can compromise to with a good enough excuse. How you can convince yourself that you're doing the right thing in the end. The man said, shaking his head, still not able to re-establish eye contact with me. Here we are, though. No creature or predator caught in over 6 months. No leads, and now you're coming in here like this. Can't avoid it now. No room for compromise left in my soul. Just what needs to be done. What I should have done all along. I can't have yours or anyone else's blood on my hands again. Locals know something is fishy anyway. Yeah, sure. Albert's Mountain is Black Bear Sanctuary. But in all my 58 years, not one person has been attacked up there. And now, 2 kids in 3 months? I don't think so. People just don't want to think about the implications of all of this. And so they pretend it's alright. Because the second that they question it fully, is the second things become real. And my dear, ignorance sometimes, truly, is bliss. Wait right here, he says before walking into the back rooms of the store where they keep pawned and private goods. And after about 3 or 4 minutes of hearing loud shuffling sounds and the tinkling of metal, the man reappeared holding a bulky yet compact revolver and a Walmart grocery bag full of small, heavy boxes. That 9mm Beretta, that's a very good weapon. Hell, it's what our military uses. But it's not quite enough for the bears, let alone anything bigger or potentially more dangerous. The man says, This here, that's a .357 snub nose, and packs a far greater punch than that Beretta. Plus, I replaced the standard rounds you wanted with high grain instead, giving it more destructive power. I can't afford to, but the man cuts me off with a wave of his hands and a half a smile. It's on the house. he says while handing everything to me. "Hey, one more thing," he says to me before I can even properly thank him. "Here," he states, as he puts a revolver auto-loader down on the counter, already loaded with shiny chrome-looking bullets. "I had a few of these babies custom made for me by a friend after the first cover-up. Even then we knew something wasn't right. The teeth and claw marks, I didn't make any logical sense. I mean, they were canine. We knew that much. But the size and specific shape was impossible. The only scientific explanation was some kind of mutated direwolf that managed to stay hidden throughout the ages, or an actual fucking cryptid. And although this idea was met with mockery when I brought it up, there was no denying something unknown and extremely lethal was killing people without leaving a trace of evidence, right smack in the middle of the local park. And my friend, he also helped to volunteer that day. He didn't fully believe me, but couldn't fully deny it either. And so he made up these special rounds in case the impossible was, well, possible. They're silver-tipped," he says, answering a look of growing confusion displayed upon my face. "I don't know what the hell is out there, but just maybe these will help," he says before wishing me luck as I exit the shop. I glance back into the store window before getting in my car. I can see the man praying now with his head bowed, eyes closed directed downward, and hands tightly clasped together, as he nervously mutters something I cannot hear. What the fuck is going on in this town? I say to myself, as I turn the ignition and start backing up, reluctantly trying to focus on my biology class in 20 minutes, instead of the impossible wilderness horror that is slowly encroaching upon my life. My doubts towards the man's story, or more specifically, my doubts that he is just fucking with me, are snuffed out like water on a blazing campfire, as I look up the value of what he just gave to me. Easily over $1,000 for the weapon and ammunition, not to mention the sterling silver bullets and auto-loader. Whatever the truth is, he completely believes what he said, making me acknowledge it as a fact even more than I already had. None of this can actually be true, though. I mean, this isn't a story. This is real life. But the only demons are depraved and diabolical humans, or maybe even large corporations that have corrupted the nation until we were dubbed corporate America. But not literal monsters of fang and claw. Is this some sort of elaborately untasteful pre-Halloween prank? I mean, it is the month of October, but this town is more of a we tolerate Halloween rather than actively promoting it, let alone embracing the holiday to the point of residents acting out a collaborative, unified plot that borders on sheer cruelty. Either way, it's becoming evident that something is most definitely very wrong. Now, things are not progressing as they should, not following the natural order of events dictated by my premonition, which, it's unheard of for me. Instead of the dream following the predetermined natural sequence of events, like a concrete, unwavering order from the universe, it's playing out more like a suggestion that can now be influenced by unknown elements outside the realm of my control, even act independently despite the shackles of predetermined fate. There remains no doubt in my mind that she is very special. If she was born across the veil, she would most likely be a powerful force to be reckoned with by now. Her latent psychic potential has actually allowed her to alter the pre-existing timeline and therefore mold the natural course of events, a reality herself, to her will. And I doubt she even realizes that she is doing so, with her subconscious mind's primal defense mechanism tapping into her latent yet powerful potential. I'm going to have to watch her every second now, to ensure she doesn't accidentally draw in the other forces to foolishly come to her aid. They will all just get in the way. They won't understand what truly is happening. They can't comprehend the implications of my mere presence here, let alone a universal need for the overwhelming desire to hunt my prey, to end their foul and corruptive existence from the earth forever. As I watched the beginning of the rising sun, with futile effort, trying to cut through the early morning fog like a spotlight in a hurricane, I stared curiously at myself in the mirror, hardly recognizing the battle maiden that gazed back into my emerald green eyes. I couldn't get back to sleep after the nightmare woke me up at 3:33 a.m. A vision of a pale humanoid hellhound of impossibly tall height, and a handsome man with one blue eye and the other a glowing intense shade of yellow. And so, capitalizing on my course in adrenaline, I went ahead and did my morning push-ups and pull-ups before donning the tactical gear I bought from the army surplus store the day after I visited the local pawn shop. I still can't get that employee's face out of my mind. With a 9mm strapped to my right hip, the .357 holstered under my left armpit, tactical combat knives fastened on my left chest and right boot, a mace in my cargo pocket, and Bear Grylls parang machete, I look like I'm about to go jogging through hell itself. I know there is something unholy and hungry awaiting me on my run this morning, something that has already killed at least 2 people and has methodically been stalking me for over a week. And so, why go at all, you may be asking yourself. And it is a very good question. Ka, as Roland the Gunslinger from the Dark Tower series would say, which loosely translates to destiny. All I know for certain is that I'm supposed to go out there this morning. An undeniable and powerful force has been pushing and steering me ever since I first became aware of the anomaly within Greenway Park. And although it strongly warns me of danger, it even more tenaciously alerts my soul to something else. Something far greater and more deeply interwoven within my own personal fate. I have never felt anything like the aura of otherworldly power that has been slowly growing inside of me, ebbing and flowing with profound charged energy. Like a supercell storm, trying desperately to break free of its Nimbrostratus prison. I felt that manic balance of fear and excitement as I walked slowly to my front door, both preparing myself and embracing the feeling as I marched towards war, and all the glory and horror that come with it. I felt powerful, alive, and supremely driven in a way I never had before, like I had been living a half-life of quiet desperation, to then be awoken by the universe itself, so it could reveal to me my true identity. And that's what it felt like, you see. Like the old Jen had ceased to exist, burnt to ash within the asylum of her own problems and hateful turmoil, for a phoenix to rise in her place, like becoming the paragon of what you are or ever could be. All I know for certain is that something powerful cries out to me specifically with esoteric purpose, and I intend to answer that clarion call. I will go on this hunt. Cover your weapons, as not to alert it to your potential, I heard a voice say as it eased its way into my mind, like a suggestive thought that gained more life and awareness with its every word. The voice was right. My chances of success would increase the more vulnerable I initially appear. So I grabbed a dark green hooded raincoat from my closet, one that went down past my knees so it would fully cover my weapons, and then downloaded a specific rife frequency to my phone. You see, ever since I had developed the psychic inclination that my foe was inherently canine, I thought to capitalize on a potential weakness. When I first started college, the stress and anxiety, well, it blocked me up. After chugging a double dose of Myra-Lax, I stumbled upon the right frequency for constipation and thought to give it a try. The sound was annoyingly invasive, to say the very least, like a digitized version of nails scraping on chalkboard. If you don't know what I'm referring to, go ahead and take a moment to search it on YouTube. I'll wait. Now, did that horrible sound actually help my condition? Well, I don't know, because I couldn't even listen to the noise long enough to find out. My point being, if this is the most annoying sound that I have personally heard, then a creature with hypersensitive hearing should be affected by it, or far greater level. I turned the lock screen off my cell phone to have the frequency ready at that moment's notice, and started off on this odyssey in a slow jog. As my steadily advancing form cut through the exceptionally thick fog, like a small plane pod in the clouds, the voice in my head spoke again, warning me of impending danger as the hairs on the back of my neck stood up with a noticeable electric charge. "It sees you now, little one. Be careful," the voice said as I forced myself not to look around nervously, not wanting the entity to know that I was already aware of its presence. After half a mile of jogging at a slow but steady pace, the first telltale sign of trouble wafted its way into my nose with its sickly sweet rot, forcing me to breathe through my mouth to avoid the repugnant scent. As I began closing in on the 1 mile mark of my run, the voice spoke once again, louder and more grounded within my conscious mind now, making my spine tingle with the very presence of its words. When you reach the throne, it will make its move. The voice warned me, referring to the tree stump that somebody had carved into a rudimentary child-sized throne that sat next to a bench facing the river. The aforementioned landmark was only about 400 yards away, making me slow my pace and gently touch the pistol holstered on my right hip, underneath the green raincoat. I began to slowly trace my fingers across the gun's barrel so my reflexes would be ready to act at a moment's notice. It was time. She is more aware of the reality of what lurks within these woods than I ever imagined. Has she become mindful of my true nature as well? I doubt it. For whatever I am, both angel and demon alike have considerable vexation when attempting to locate or control me. A trait that has proved to be very useful in retaining my privacy and clandestine lifestyle. I watch her close in on the 1 mile marker of her run with a nervous concern, as I circle my fingers around the silver amulet, knowing that her potent psychic abilities have turned this flawless premonition into a haphazard free for all, affecting everyone and everything now involved. A familiar yet alarming scent forces me to release my amulet and begin scanning the immediate area with my heightened senses. No, not now, I think to myself, as a man in his late 50s, clad in full tactical gear, begins to inch out of the forest with what appeared to be some kind of automatic rifle, parallel to the girl's position. That's the pawn shop employee. With chaos mere moments away from unfolding everywhere, I simply do not have time to focus or try to read the man's present intentions. All I know is that he is here to kill. Rather it be the girl or... It's too late. She is about to reach the small throne-looking tree stump. I have to act now. As I approach the wooden stump, I undo my raincoat just enough to allow access to my weapons without visibly revealing them and put on a show of mock confusion for my stalking spectator. I need not pretend to be afraid though, for that emotion swims through my veins vigorously, making my blood pump hard with its authenticity. I hear something large land about 30 feet behind me, making a pronounced yet muffled thud as it hits the asphalted section of the greenway, like an experienced predatorial cat leaping from a great height. Not yet, little one, the voice instructs me. It's not aware of your tactics. Be patient. Be brave. I still my nerves and quiet my mind before I reluctantly turn around to face my pursuer, confident that my rapidly growing psychic inclinations towards combat and the paranormal would harden my resolve upon first seeing the creature. However, nothing could have prepared my fleeting sanity for the ungodly and impossible image that now stood before me. It was so much worse than any nightmarish imagining that my sheltered human mind could ever have conjured. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. What an absolutely intriguing, chest-pounding, incredible story there. From our good friend, Mr. David Morningway. That one's another exclusive for the channel, guys, and I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I know my voice is literally breaking and wanted to quit altogether. Big thank you, David, of course, for penning this and getting it over to me. Absolutely fantastic writing and character development, and I really can't wait to see where you take us next on your adventures. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let me know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. Now, if you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things, like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the contact email, which is, as on screen, contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope you all had a fantastic start to the month and an even better end to the week. And I'm looking forward to putting your feet up for the weekend with good food and drink and even better company. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.